welcome back to the This Is My Story podcast. I'm Joe Kinney, and I'm excited today to have an opportunity to talk with a good friend of mine, Doug Leary. And Doug, it's so good to have you here today, and thanks for your willingness to be a part of this. Well, Doug, you and I have known each other for I don't know how long. Feels like I've known you my whole life, but I'm not exactly sure. I guess did we meet? I guess at Wake Forest Baptist Church is where we actually met.
Yeah, yeah.
But you've got some history with my family, particularly my wife's family. My wife's mom and you went to school together in high school, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's right.
And was that Rocky Hawk?
Well, no, it was Chowan High School. You see,
Okay.
at the early stages, I understood that the Rocky Hawk Elementary or Middle School transferred to Chowan High School.
Okay.
And that's where I became involved with uh, Kathy's mother. And um,
Probably
that's where,
some of her uncles and aunts.
yes, absolutely. Jack and Tommy and Billy, they all, as a matter of fact, one of the, I noticed one of the screens that came up, it had a Bill Leary on there.
Oh wow. Oh
So
wow.
it does that occasionally. It picks up uh, the last name and then they fill in the blanks. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, listen, it is great to be able to sit down and do this with you. And you're one of those people that I've looked up to the entire time I've been at Wake Forest Baptist Church. You've been such a good leader and a good role model for many of us. And so I think this is going to be a lot of fun today, just having a little bit of a chance to kind of get to know your background and your story and that type of thing. So why don't we just start there? Why don't you tell us a little bit about where your faith journey began?
well, as I mentioned to you on the phone the other day when we were talking about this, I grew up in the Ballards Bridge Baptist Church, which is a rural church right outside of Chowan High School. And I went there with my family for my family was a Christian family, and that's where the beginning was. Is that I um, always went to church every Sunday, and of course there was a youth fellowship. If you remember back in the days, there was a youth fellowship that we attended at on Sunday nights, and I had you were talking about Julia's family. Um, she had an aunt that went to church there. I don't know whether you recall the name Carrie Hollowell, but
No.
Carrie Hollowell's wife was an aunt of Julia's. And I always went to her Sunday school class when I was in my early stages of attending church. And and she she became an example for me that she always was very kind, and I don't know how much influence uh, the the family connection had, but she was always very kind to me, and I always liked her, and of course I always liked Carrie as well, her husband, because he always had a cigar in his mouth, and it seems like he always had that stub in his mouth when he was outside the church, of course. Anyway, I'm my early beginnings was right there at the Ballards Bridge Baptist Church, um, and I when I got into high school, I played baseball and basketball and was pretty good at it. I I I played in the summertime. I played in what was referred to then as a summer league, and I was recruited by the Pittsburgh Pirates.
No kidding. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
and it did not work out. I I hit from the left side, and of course you know the story that when you hit from the left side, left-handed pitchers have a heyday.
Okay.
and,
Okay.
and anyway, that's why I did not. It didn't work out. I went to Burlington and spent 2 or 3 days and did a workout there. And anyway, and then uh, I entered. The Korean War was going on at that time, and I made a call to the draft board of Chowan County, and I asked them how was where was I on that list, and they said you were pretty close to the top. I said, well, in that case, I'm going to just volunteer for the draft. And anyway, they sent me to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training. And then they sent me to a high-speed radio operation training at Camp Gordon, Georgia. And then when I finished that training, they sent me to Korea. I was trying
Wow.
to I was trying to avoid Korea, but anyway, uh, I came back and of course I did not continue in the military. I started college in the fall at ECU and graduated there in 4 years with a degree in business, and that was in 1960. So from that point on, it was an employment question as to where was I going to be employed, and I was initially was they had the Carolina Telephone and Telegraph. I don't know whether you remember
I do.
them or not, but uh, they set up interviews at ECU, and that's where I went to work initially. And then I became so involved in their equipment training that it did not concern me that that was going to be my career. Anyway, I in the meantime I married Becky, and that's where I met her, of course, at ECU, and and her dad was a director of an electric cooperative there in that area.
Hmm.
And he convinced me that I needed to apply and become involved with the electric cooperative program, which was nationally, there was over 1,000 electric cooperatives in the country. So I went to Burgall being
Hmm.
near Wilmington, and I stayed there for 10 years. And then I applied as a CEO at Wake Forest and stayed there for 10 years. And I was then appointed by the Governor Hunt to be on the Utilities Commission. And I accepted that. And then when I completed that tenure, I was then hired by an electric cooperative in Kentucky. And I stayed there for about 10 years until I retired. And then I came back to Wake Forest Baptist Church. We had maintained a house there in Wake Forest, and I became very active, of course, in the church, in primarily in leadership functions. And I became, as you had indicated, I became chair of the deacons. I became a deacon, and then I became chair of the deacons. And then later, I became chair of a search committee that brought Willard Brown. I don't know whether you remember that name or not.
I do.
Willard Brown and Bill Slater to Wake Forest Baptist Church. And in addition to those kinds of functions, I sang in the choir. I sang tenor in the chancel choir and baritone in the men's chorus. Now that's indicating that I had some special talent, but I didn't. All I had was that I loved to sing. And then I became, on your invitation, chair of the church council, which you had been part of. And you invited me to come to your house to give me some pointers that you'd be certainly willing to give me some pointers if that was okay. And I said, absolutely. I'm wide open. Anyway, and you did. You reviewed the process, the procedures, and so on that go on. And anyway, that worked out fine. You know, I of course held that leadership position for a year, and then after the church council, I started teaching Sunday school. And this is the old folks group. This is the Cornelia class. And it happens to be the future, I think, in whatever I can contribute to the future of Wake Forest Baptist Church is in the teaching area.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure about that either. I'm always looking for opportunities to contribute, and you do that too, Joe. You volunteer doing these podcasts, and I think what a great service that is. And
Well, let's go back and let me ask you a couple questions, fill in a couple gaps here. You mentioned that you grew up in Eastern North Carolina, grew up in Chowan County, right?
Right.
And for those who are listening to this, Chowan County is up in the northeastern part of the state. The county seat is Edenton. People probably are more familiar with places like Elizabeth City, maybe a little bit larger town, just a little bit to the north. But Chowan County is a place where I also spent some of my youth growing up as well. And so when you left Chowan County, you went right to the military.
Yes, I did.
Gotcha. And by the way, today is Memorial Day when we're recording this, just out of just kind of seemed to be a prudent fact here. And let me just say thank you for your service, Doug. And I know Memorial Day probably has special meaning for you. And so anyway, I want to thank you for that. But then after your military service, you said you went to Greenville to East Carolina to study business.
Right.
And you met Becky there.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that story, about meeting Becky.
Well, she was naturally, she attracted my attention. we had a class together, and there was a psychology class, and she always accused me of sitting on the front desk and challenging the professor. Well, anyway, and I said, well, I tried to get the professor's attention because of all the giggling that was going on in the rear of the room. It was a bunch of girls back there, and they were making all kinds of noise. So it kind of introduced me to her. She's an outgoing person. She's, as a matter of fact, even right here at Springmore, Joe, she is, she's outgoing here. She makes it a point to, if she sees needs of other residents here, she responds. I don't have that talent. I may see some needs, but I just don't respond the way that she does. And she has become an idol for me. And I think you over a period of time, you know this, Joe, is that when you marry someone, you let them influence you in your judgments and your decisions and your the things that go on between you. It's an influence, and she has influenced me greatly. And so I am very glad that I had the opportunity to marry her. And that was, matter of fact, I've got an anniversary coming up soon. We'll have 63 years, June
Wow.
19th.
Wow.
And I'm just pleased to say that I am glad that we met and got together.
63 years. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
That's quite the accomplishment.
Yes. Well, you got a
So,
ways to go, Joe, you and Kathy. And
so when did y'all get married right out of college? Then I
yes, we
guess.
did. We did. We graduated in May, and then we got married in June the 19th.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you were at the time you were working for the phone company.
Yes. And of
Right.
course, her dad had the opportunity to influence me to become part of the electric cooperative power business. And of course, me being from a rural area, I knew what it meant to, there was an electric cooperative in Hertford, which is near Edenton. And that absence of electric power made a real dent in my memory, because I can remember growing up and studying by lamplight. And of course, there wasn't any power in the house, and therefore we were captured by the fact that there was no power on the premises at all. And I can remember the day very vividly that power came to our house. And therefore, you become very committed to this kind of rural power. And therefore, I became very devoted to the rural electric program nationwide.
Well,
And
I can see where you would have a passion for that based on your experience, right?
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of some of my history. Um,
Now, when you first got married, where were you all, were you living in Greenville or when you were working for the phone company or?
when we right after we got married, we became involved with the Carolina Telephone Telegraph Company, and that was, of course, a utility. And um, I that made me um instrumental in being receptive to another utility, which was the rural utility situation. And
Right.
so that's where we went to Newbern. Newbern was where they assigned me from Carolina Telephone,
Okay.
and then we, as time goes on, you generate children, and that was the beginning of the family that we generated. And we have three sons now, and one of them is in Texas. Another one is there in Wake Forest, and the other one is in Clayton.
Okay.
So we are we got together even yesterday as a family, and here at Springmore, and
Yeah, well, that's nice. That's nice. So how many grandchildren do you have?
have six grandchildren. Two of them live in Wake Forest. Three of them are in Texas, and one is in Clayton. And we enjoy those kids. And as a matter of fact, we have just had an arrival of the oldest grandchild. He got married. He went to Texas A&M and became a commander there as in the what I call the military part of that
Right.
that institution. And he is now married, and we have had a great grandchild. So we're proud of that. And
Wow,
and he,
great grandchild.
yeah, and he, the oldest grandchild, keeps sending us pictures of that of that great grandchild. So
What would
it's
it, and did you finally have a girl in the family somewhere along the way?
yes, we did, and one of those is in Texas,
Okay.
and she's getting ready to go to Texas Tech, which is in. Are you familiar with? Well, you lived in
Waco,
Waco, which is where Texas
Baylor. That's where Baylor is.
Baylor is there. Yeah. Well, the girl is the granddaughter is going to Texas Tech, which is in it's in the anyway, that's where she's going, and
Okay.
she is in the top of her class in high school in at Texas at Tyler Junior College. She was the top of her class, and she is going into STEM program,
Oh, wow.
and that's a science influence, and she is uh, seems very excited to be going there.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, you've been very blessed with your family, and I know that for you and Becky, that's something that you're both very proud of.
Oh, we are absolutely, yes.
Going back to so going back to Wake Forest Baptist Church for a minute here. So were you, so what year did you join Wake Forest Baptist Church?
It was when I accepted the position as CEO of Wake Electric there
Okay.
in Wake Forest. And that was like 1957, 58.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been at Wake Forest Baptist Church ever since?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, except when I went to Kentucky,
Right.
uh, that was um, we we still owned the house that we lived in Wake Forest, and we would come back to that house on vacations um, and opportunities to see family and so on, and so we maintained the house, the
Gotcha.
ownership of that house in that location.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So tell me a little bit about some of your favorite memories and experiences at Wake Forest Baptist Church. What are some things that come to mind?
Well, it's Wake Forest Baptist Church offers all kinds of opportunities to volunteer and participate and work for the Lord. And Becky has become involved with the quilting program. As a matter of fact, the wife of our oldest grandson requested that a blanket for the new baby, could she do that for them? And she of course she's been doing that now for some time, and plus um, she is doing a quilt for each grandchild, and those 6 grandchildren are of naturally tickled to death with that commitment. And yeah,
That's special.
and so she has been involved with the quilting program and ministry at the church. And anyway, she's very good at it. She selects colors that are they match, and she always, of course, gets my approval. But but I'm talking about the matching of colors.
Right.
And anyway, that's the other opportunities of Wake Forest Baptist Church is, if you have any leadership qualities at all, and you know this, Joe, you there's all kinds of opportunities to participate in leadership opportunities, and there's numbers of them around, and I'm just glad that I'm there and can participate and offer my services um, to take advantage of those opportunities.
Mhm.
You
You
know
know
that,
what?
Joe. You know you've been in that role for some time yourself, and you were talking about uh, that I had been your mentor. You've been my mentor as well. We think a lot alike, I think. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I was hoping you might want to talk about a little bit that I think is something that you would be able to bring some unique perspective on, that people listening to this might not really know the history of, is the Stevenson campus.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You know,
As a
you had some.
matter of fact, the when David was at NC State, this is our oldest son. He developed a relationship with W.C. Stevenson, and As a matter of fact, WC allowed him to have his own garden. And I can remember Becky saying he just brought stuff for me uh, to prepare over and over and over. And I think that was a blessing. Getting to know WC, I got to know WC through David, and David looked upon him as almost like a grandfather, and I think over a period of time, WC and his wife became instrumental in David's life, and I think that over a period of time, a hurricane came, and a tree fell on the housing situation there, and it destroyed the house. And after a period of time, I also chaired the what I call the Stevenson property, and that property was I had to help clean up that whole area because of the hurricane that fell the tree into the house. Anyway, as time went on, the WC and his wife willed that property, that is the real estate, to the church. But over a period of time, it proved to be instrumental because, as you know, there's a pavilion there now, and that pavilion has offered all kinds of opportunities for fellowship and so on that's going on there. As a matter of fact, there's a soccer field there now. That was part of the excitement, I think, that Bill Slater had about coming to Wake Forest Baptist Church, was that there was all kinds of opportunities for leadership possibilities and building and growing. And of course, with Bill Slater there, he's retiring, of course, but he is I think he's excited about what his future looks like now. And I think that there's going to be a big change, I think, in the long range, because there's been at least 1,000 new members who have joined our church since Bill Slater has been there. And there's opportunities for more growth in the future, in my opinion. If there's a new facility on the property of the Stevenson property now, I think we'll see more and more growth.
Yeah. Let me switch gears a little bit and ask you a question I like to ask people, which is, tell me about in your own life, what do you find to be helpful spiritual practices? Are there any things that you do in your life at this point that you feel like are things that help really keep you close to God?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned, I'm teaching Sunday school on the fifth Sunday. That's the role that I'm playing right now, and studying the Word. And I have a devotional every morning with myself and prayer. And I think that's the thing that keeps me in touch with God and Jesus Christ. And I think that if there is a direction for me in the future, that I'm going to depend on the Lord in that direction. Absolutely.
Yeah. How about I know that music is an important part of your worship experience. I know yesterday morning I saw you in the choir, singing right along with everybody. Do you have a favorite hymn?
Oh, I do. And that hymn is Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus.
Oh yeah.
It's a great, just a great message there. And I think that, uh, and I think you had asked earlier in some of your questions, what is your favorite scripture?
Yeah, yeah.
And I had mentioned Julia's aunt.
Hmm.
Uh, she taught us John 3:16. And I remember that distinctly. And I remember that from her class.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a favorite passage of mine. Yes.
Very good. Doug, if you could sum up in a couple of words or just in a few sentences, if you could sum up what your faith means to you and what a difference it's made in your life, what would you say?
I would say that I have depended on God and Jesus Christ for many years. Matter of fact, all of these years, beginning even with the Ballas Bridge Baptist Church situation, all of these years, and the influence of my family, and not only my mom and dad, but I was the youngest of 7 children, and every one of my siblings have had an influence on how I worship God and how I followed the Lord in everything that I did. And if there's anything that I can say about the future, it's that the Lord is giving me direction in every decision that I make, every judgment that I make is coming from the Lord. And I think that if I had to say, how do I view the future? I view the future in terms of following the Lord in everything that I do and say and think. And all of these influences are making a big difference in my life today.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I was influenced greatly by sports, by baseball. My whole family, so to speak, has been part of the baseball picture. As you know, uh, the baseball. I played baseball 4 years in high school, and it's um, I had my oldest brother played AAA baseball. He played for the for the minor leagues in AAA, and his team would always ask him, "Why aren't you in the major leagues?" He was a home run hitter, and he would always say, "My manager would never let me go." That is the manager of the club, and I think. And then I had a nephew, Trot Nixon, who played for the Boston Red Sox, and he had a great career, and he was instrumental in them winning the World Series in whatever year that was. I'm not sure what that year was, but Boston had not ever won a World Series until the opportunity came up that he was on the team when they did that. So,
Wow.
So baseball has been a big part of my life, and that's part of my story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Doug, as we get ready to wrap up here, is there anything that maybe I haven't asked you about that you wanted to speak on? Anything that I've missed that you wanted to add, or something maybe I forgot to ask you?
Well, you had some good questions that prompted me to think about, for example, what my favorite scripture was and what my favorite hymn was. And I just appreciate your asking me
Mm-hmm.
to do this podcast. And I think because I have had a great, I guess you call it a great career at Wake Forest Baptist Church, and there's more opportunities there. And I hope that you're around for a long time, Joe, that you are there to make the contribution that you're capable of.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Doug, what is it that we can pray for about you as we close here? Is there anything particularly you would want people listening to this to pray for you about?
Yes, there is. I'm in my total testimony here, and that's what I call this, a testimony. I would appreciate prayer that I would continue in the worship of the Lord Jesus Christ and God, and pay attention to the Holy Spirit that's in our lives today, and that I would be part of their prayers for a long, long time.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Doug, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here and being willing to do this today. And let me just tell you that, we have all been blessed by having you be a part of Wake Forest Baptist Church. I mean, gosh, there's not a leadership role that you haven't been involved in, pastor search committees, you name it. You really have made a major contribution to the history of this church. And um, and for me personally, I just thank you for, again, the role model, the example that you've set for all of us. So we'll continue to pray for you and Becky, and that God will continue to shine favorably upon you.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe, for this opportunity. Thank you very much.